There was a boy named John. He was 14 years old. He lived with his 6-year-old sister, Kate. Their father died when Kate was just 1. Their mother worked hard to care for them, but she passed away when Kate was 4. After that, they were alone. John had to leave school. He worked hard to take care of Kate. He did his best to provide for them both. He spent his days selling small items and cleaning shoes on the footpath. One morning, John woke up and went to the kitchen. He filled the pot with water, lit the stove, and added tea leaves, milk, and sugar. Then he toasted some bread. He went to the room and gently shook Kate.
Kate, wake up, please. Breakfast is ready,
he said. Kate rubbed her eyes, got up, and went to the bathroom. Meanwhile, John poured tea into cups and set the food on the floor. Kate came in, and they sat together to eat. John looked at her.
It's time for school, but I can't send her.
After breakfast, he said,
I'm going for work. Take care of yourself.
And left for work. After John left, Kate took the broom and swept the floor. She washed the dishes and cleaned the kitchen. Sitting alone, she whispered,
If Mom and Dad were alive, I wouldn't be alone. Brother could go to school, and I would go to school too. I would wear a uniform and carry a bag, and go to school with books and notebooks.
John arrived at his usual spot and set up his things. Shoe polish, brushes, pencils, erasers, and snacks. As kids walked to school, some stopped.
Mom, I need a pencil,
said one child. The mother smiled and said,
All right. Take one.
She handed John a few cents. Another child pointed at the snacks.
Mom, can I have some chips?
The mother paid, and the child happily took the chips. John watched them leave. After some time, a man came to John's stall.
How much for the polish?
He asked.
50 cents. Sir.
John replied with a smile. The man nodded and handed him the money.
Polish them well.
John got to work fast, brushing the man's shoes. The man smiled as he inspected them.
Good job,
he said, handing John another 20 cents as a tip.
Thank you, sir,
John replied. In the evening, John packed the things in a bag. and closed his small shop. He went to the store for groceries. After this, he headed home. John reached home, and Kate ran to him, hugging him tightly.
I missed you, brother,
she said. John smiled and patted her head. He went to the kitchen and splashed water on his face. Then he boiled rice and cooked lentils. Soon, he set the food on the floor, and they sat down to eat. Kate took a bite and looked up.
I wish we had rice porridge.
John felt a pang in his heart but smiled.
When I get some more money, I promise I will make it for you.
Kate nodded.
Okay, brother.
One day, John had more customers than usual. By evening, he had earned more money than before. After closing his shop, he went to the store and bought rice and a pack of milk. He paid, took the bag, and hurried home. He knocked on the door. Kate came running and opened it.
Good news!
John smiled.
Tonight, we will have rice porridge.
Kate shouted.
Oh, really?
John nodded. They both went to the kitchen. John started preparing the porridge, while Kate sat nearby.
Kate, tonight we only have rice porridge for dinner,
John said softly. Kate smiled.
Brother, that's enough.
Soon, it was ready. John poured it into 2 bowls, and they sat on the floor to eat. Kate took a bite and beamed.
It's so yummy.
John smiled.
Mom used to make it just like this.
Kate's smile faded. John said,
Mom would be happy seeing us. And I know she would say, eat well and stay strong.
Kate looked up at him. A tear rolled down her cheek, but she quickly wiped it away and smiled.
Yes, brother. Let's eat.
John smiled.
That's my brave girl.
One morning, a customer came for shoe polish. After John finished, the man handed him only 20 cents. John hesitated.
Sir, I told you it's 50 cents.
The man shouted.
That's enough!
And walked away. A tear rolled down John's cheek. He quietly put the money in the box. That night, John lay on the floor, staring at the roof. Tears rolled down his face as he whispered,
Mom, Dad, why did you have to leave us?
He sighed.
I want to send Kate to school, but I can't even earn enough for that.
He closed his eyes. One day, Mr. Robert, a regular customer, came. When John was polishing his shoes, Mr. Robert said,
"John, I heard the nearby factory is looking for a helper. You should go there."
John nodded. That night, as John lay on the floor, he thought,
Maybe this is my chance. A steady job with a salary. I could send Kate to school.
The next morning, after breakfast, John said,
Kate, I'm going to apply for the job.
Kate smiled and said,
Brother, God bless you.
John smiled and left. At the factory, he met the in charge.
I want the helper job.
John said. The in charge replied,
You will wash dishes and serve tea to the workers.
John nodded.
You can start tomorrow.
The in charge said. When John returned home, he told Kate.
I got the job.
Both were very happy. The next morning, John arrived at work. The in charge, Mr. Charles, introduced him to Mr. Albert, the chef. John began his work, washing cups and delivering tea to the workers. It was hard work, and he was sweating. He was washing the cups when Mr. Charles came and shouted,
Clean the cups well. They are filthy.
Tears welled up in his eyes. Just 3 days were left until payday. John's savings were finished. He thought,
Now I will get my salary.
the next day, a few cups slipped from his hands and broke. Mr. Albert rushed over.
Hide these quickly.
But just then, Mr. Charles came.
You broke the cups?
He yelled.
You're fired.
John's eyes welled up with tears.
Please, sir, deduct it from my salary and give me whatever's left.
He pleaded. Mr. Charles sneered.
Salary? You won't get a single penny.
John left, heartbroken. Mr. Albert watched sadly. John wandered the streets. As night approached, he realized he had to go home.
Kate will be worried.
When he reached home, Kate opened the door.
Brother, why are you so late?
John sighed. He sat down, and Kate looked at him with concern. After a while, John stood up and left again. John wandered aimlessly, his stomach growling. He spotted a warehouse. He sneaked inside and picked a rice sack. Suddenly, a voice broke the silence.
Stop.
John slowly turned around. An old man stood there. The old man led him to his house, where an old woman was cooking. She smiled and gave him food. John sighed.
My sister is so hungry.
The man said.
Bring her.
John soon returned with Kate. After they ate, the woman took away Kate. The man asked.
Why did you steal?
John said.
The factory kicked me out without paying.
The man asked.
Can you work here?
John said nodded. John knew life was hard, but with hope and hard work, he and Kate will be okay.